The desert stretched endlessly under two burning suns. The air shimmered with heat, and the golden sand rolled like an ocean of fire. Nothing moved except the hot wind, carrying dust across the empty land. In this silence, one sound broke through, the faint creak of a wheelchair sinking into the sand. Beside the chair lay a young alien girl. Her skin was a pale green, glowing faintly under the suns. Her black hair spread across the sand, and her lips were dry from thirst. She wore a simple outfit, now covered in dust. Her chest rose and fell slowly, every breath heavy and painful. She could not move her legs, and the chair that once carried her now stood useless, half buried in the dune. Her eyes, large and filled with sorrow, looked toward the horizon. In the distance, shadows of soldiers were fading away. Their tall alien figures marched without looking back. Among them had been her father, the powerful Baron. She had begged him not to leave her, but his words still echoed in her mind. "A cripple has no place in my house. Survive if you can." The girl's throat tightened as she whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Father, why?" No answer came, only the cruel heat of the desert. The silence pressed against her like a heavy blanket. She thought of her childhood, the times when she had tried to prove her worth. She had studied hard, trained her mind, but it was never enough. To the Baron, only strength of the body mattered, and now, because of her weakness, she was left to die. Tears burned in her eyes, but they dried before they could fall. She felt anger building inside her chest, but her body was too weak to rise. She let her head fall back on the sand. The desert spun above her. Then, in the distance, another figure appeared. At first, it was only a blur against the dunes. Slowly it became clear, a man walking alone across the wasteland. He wore rough desert clothes, his boots sinking with every step. A long scarf covered part of his face, protecting him from the sand. He carried a small pack on his back, and his eyes scanned the horizon with caution. The girl's heart raced. Was he friend or enemy? Her kind had many enemies, and strangers in the desert were often more dangerous than the sun. She tried to call out, but her voice was only a whisper. The man stopped. His gaze fell on the wheelchair, then on the girl lying weak in the sand. For a moment he stood still, as if deciding whether to turn away or come closer. The desert wind howled between them. Slowly he began to walk toward her. Each step brought suspense. Would he help? Or would he finish what her father had started? The girl closed her eyes, too tired to resist whatever came. She heard his boots crunching closer, the sound echoing in the silence of the desert. And then, a shadow fell across her face. She opened her eyes, and the man stood over her, looking down with a mixture of surprise and concern. In that moment, the endless desert was no longer silent. The man's shadow stretched long across the burning sand as he looked down at the strange girl. Her green skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight, and her body was so weak she seemed more like a dying dream than a living being. For a moment he hesitated. He'd seen many things in his journeys across alien worlds, bandits, broken machines, and the wreckage of wars. But never a sight like this. A wheelchair in the middle of nowhere, and a young alien girl abandoned beside it. It felt like a trap, yet something in her eyes told him it was not. The girl tried to speak. Her lips moved slowly, and a cracked whisper escaped. "Water." The man knelt down. His leather boots pressed deep into the sand. He removed a small flask from his pack, shaking it. Only a little remained, but he pressed it gently to her lips. She drank with trembling hands, each drop giving her a moment of life. As she swallowed, tears rolled down the corners of her eyes. "Why do you help me?" she asked in a weak, broken voice. The man studied her. He had no answer, not yet, but he saw the truth in her expression. This was no enemy soldier, no trick. This was someone cast away, someone forgotten. Finally he spoke. his voice calm but rough from the desert air. "Because no one deserves to die like this." The girl looked away. The words hit her like a knife because she knew they were true. Her own people had left her. Her father had abandoned her. And yet, this stranger, this human, chose to help. The man glanced at the wheelchair. Sand had swallowed half of its wheels, and its frame shimmered hot in the sun. He understood what it meant. She could not walk. Whoever left her here had left her to die slowly. He lifted the wheelchair from the dune, brushing off the sand. With effort he placed it upright. Then, without hesitation, he bent down and carried the girl gently in his arms. She gasped, surprised. By his strength, but too weak to protest. He set her carefully into the seat. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, but he turned toward the distant mountains. "There's shade that way," he said. "If we keep moving, we can survive." The girl stared at him, confusion mixing with hope. "You don't even know me," she whispered. The man gave a small smile, though his eyes stayed sharp on the horizon. "I don't need to. I only know you've been left behind, and I won't do the same." For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of someone choosing her, not because of power, not because of blood, but simply because she was worth saving. But far above, hidden by the glare of the suns, a faint mechanical hum echoed. A scout drone circled high, its red eye blinking as it captured the scene. Somewhere far away, a signal was sent. The girl shivered as she realized the truth. Her father's men would not let her live so easily. The man pushed the wheelchair forward, boots crunching in the sand. The desert was wide, the suns cruel, and danger was coming. But for the first time, she was not alone. The desert stretched on as the man pushed the wheelchair, his boots sinking into the burning dunes. Every step was heavy, but the silence between them was heavier. The girl sat with her head low, staring at the endless sand. Her mind was far away, lost in memories that refused to stay buried. Finally, the man broke the silence. "Who left you here?" His tone was calm but edged with curiosity. The girl's lips tightened. For a moment she wanted to remain silent, to let the desert swallow her story. But something in his steady presence made her speak. "My father," she whispered. The man stopped for a second, glancing down at her. He had expected bandits or strangers, never her own blood. "Your father did this?" She nodded, eyes full of shame and anger. "He is Baron Thalric, ruler of the northern colonies. To him, I am nothing but a burden." Her voice shook as she spoke, but it carried a strength born from pain. The human frowned. He had heard the name. Thalric was known across the stars. Merciless, cunning, feared by even the bravest. But to abandon his own daughter in the desert, that was cruelty beyond measure. The girl continued, her voice bitter. "When I was born, I was different. My legs never worked as they should. While others trained with weapons, I struggled just to walk. He called me weak, broken." She clenched her fists, her nails pressing against her skin. She looked away, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Do you know what it feels like to beg for love from a man who only sees you as a failure? To smile at him even as he turns away? I tried. I tried so many times. I studied harder than anyone, memorized history, mastered machines. But none of it mattered. To him, only strength of the body counted. And so, when the desert march began, he ordered me left behind." Her words hung in the air, sharp as the desert wind. The man said nothing. He only pushed the wheelchair forward, the crunch of sand underfoot the only sound. Yet his silence was not cold, it was heavy with thought. The girl studied him, searching for judgment in his face. But he did not look at her with pity. He looked at her as if she were more than the story she told. That gaze unsettled her. She was used to being invisible. Finally he spoke. "Strength comes in many forms. A fool cannot see that." Her eyes widened, not because of the words, but because someone finally said what she had always wished to believe. For the first time, her heart stirred with something dangerous. Hope. But hope was fragile. Above them, the hum of machines grew louder. She froze, looking up. Small black dots appeared in the blazing sky. Drones, searching, hunting. Her chest tightened. She knew whose eyes watched through those machines. "My father," she whispered, voice trembling. "He knows I live." The man tightened his grip on the wheelchair. His eyes scanned the sky, calm but alert. "Then we keep moving. If he wants you dead, he'll have to come himself." The girl felt a strange fire burn inside her chest. For the first time in her broken past, someone stood between her and the cruelty of her father. And deep inside she began to wonder, maybe she was not broken at all. The desert night came quickly. The suns sank behind the jagged cliffs, leaving the land painted in deep red and gold before darkness swallowed it whole. The temperature dropped, the air turning sharp and cold. The man built a small fire from dry brush, its glow pushing back the shadows. The girl sat in her wheelchair near the flames, her eyes reflecting the light. Her thin arms hugged her chest against the chill. For hours they had walked in silence, always glancing at the sky where drones passed like dark birds. Now, in the quiet of the night, the weight of the day pressed down on them both. The man handed her a strip of dried food. She accepted it hesitantly, chewing slowly. Her voice broke the silence. "You risk too much. If they find you helping me, they will kill you." He looked into the fire, not at her. "Death follows me anyway. At least this way it has meaning." She studied him, confused. "Why? You don't know me. Why give me your food, your water, your strength?" The man finally met her eyes. His gaze was steady, strong, but not unkind. "Because your life was not his to throw away. A father who abandons his child is no ruler. He is a coward." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken about the Baron like that, not even in whispers. To hear it aloud was like breaking chains. The fire cracked. The girl lowered her head, her voice soft. "You do not understand. To my people, weakness is shame. To need help is dishonor. I was never his daughter. I was his disappointment." The man leaned forward, his tone sharp. "Then they are blind. You are alive when others would already be dead. That is not weakness. That is survival." His words sank deep into her. For the first time, she felt seen. She had been called cripple, useless, a burden, but never survivor. Still, her chest tightened with fear. She whispered, "If we are caught, you will die. I will be the reason." Tich. The man gave a short, humorless laugh. "If they come, they'll find I'm not so easy to kill." The girl stared at him, surprised by his confidence. Something in his presence made her feel safe, a feeling she had never known even in her father's fortress. But the desert had no mercy for tender moments. A low hum drifted across the night air. She stiffened instantly. The man heard it too. Rising, he pulled his worn rifle from his pack and scanned the dunes. 3 glowing red eyes appeared in the darkness. Drones, moving low, searching. The girl gripped the arms of her chair, panic filling her. "They found us!" The man placed a steady hand on her shoulder. His touch was firm, grounding. "Then we move. Together." He kicked sand over the fire, plunging them into shadow. With quick strength, He pushed the wheelchair into the night, their path lit only by the faint stars above. The desert stretched before them, cold and endless, danger close behind. Yet in the space between fear and hope, something fragile but powerful began to grow. A bond, not of blood, not of duty, but of survival and trust. Far away from the desert, in a fortress of black stone and steel, the alien Baron stood at the edge of his throne room. His eyes glowed cold beneath his heavy crown, his clawed hands gripping the railing as reports arrived. A drone had returned, its recording clear. His daughter was alive. Alive, and worse, with a human. The Baron's chest rumbled with anger, each breath heavier than the last. "She should have perished in the sands," he growled. His voice echoed through the hall, chilling the guards who stood at attention. "She dares to survive. And with an outsider. A cripple should know her place." He slammed his hand onto the railing, the stone cracking beneath his strength. "Send the hunters. I want her erased, and the human's body broken at her feet." The hunters bowed, armored shadows with gleaming weapons, and left at once. Back in the desert, the girl stirred as the man pushed her wheelchair across a dune. Her heart felt heavy, her mind restless. She could not shake the memory of her father's eyes, cold, unloving, cruel. She knew him too well. He would not allow her to escape. Finally she spoke, her voice low. "He will come for us. My father. He cannot let me live. To him, my survival is an insult." The man's jaw tightened, his step steady. "Let him come." She turned her face toward him, disbelief and fear mixing in her eyes. "You don't understand. He commands armies. His hunters are bred for war. You cannot fight them." He looked down at her, his expression calm, even as danger closed in. "Maybe not armies, but I can fight for you, and I will." Her heart ached at those words. No one had ever spoken for her, never stood by her side without expecting something in return. And now, this human, this stranger, chose to stand between her and the storm. Night fell again. The stars shimmered above like icy diamonds. They stopped to rest near a cluster of rocks, where the air was colder, but safer from the drones. The girl's hands trembled slightly as she gazed at the horizon. The man built a small fire, but his eyes never left the darkness. He sensed it, something coming. The desert was too quiet. Then, faintly, the sound of engines whispered through the night. The girl's heart sank. She knew that sound. Hunters. The man's hand tightened around his rifle. His voice was steady, but his tone carried steel. "Stay low. Don't make a sound." Shadows moved on the dunes, tall figures in armor, glowing red eyes cutting through the dark. The hunters fanned out, their weapons humming with deadly power. The girl clutched the armrest of her chair, her fear rising. She whispered, "They won't stop. He sent them to finish me." The man glanced at her, his expression sharp but calm. "Then we make them fail." The fire between them flickered, the flames casting sharp shadows across the rocks. The desert night had become a battlefield waiting to ignite. And in that moment, the girl realized something. Her father's wrath was vast, but the man beside her was not afraid. And because of him, neither was she. The desert was quiet again, after the hunter's footsteps faded into the night. The man and the girl had escaped, but only barely. Their breaths came heavy, their bodies tired. The stars stretched endlessly above, cold and distant, as if watching silently. The girl sat in her chair, staring at her trembling hands. Her mind raced. Fear mixed with something stronger, a memory she had tried to bury for years. She looked at the man, his rifle resting across his lap as he kept watch. His eyes scanned the dunes, calm but sharp. Finally she spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "There is something you don't know about me." He turned his head, his expression unreadable. "Then, tell me." She hesitated. Her father had always warned her, never show it, never speak of it. It was her shame. But now, sitting in the endless desert with death closing in, she realized it might also be her only weapon. She reached toward the broken drone they had destroyed earlier, its body half buried in the sand. Her fingers shook, but her eyes narrowed with focus. The man leaned forward. "What are you doing?" The girl closed her eyes. Slowly the faint glow in her skin began to brighten, spreading from her hands. The air around them seemed to vibrate softly. Then the drone twitched. Its broken eye flickered red, then blue, then shut down completely, as if obeying her command. The man's eyes widened. For the first time, he looked at her not as a crippled girl in a wheelchair, but as something far more. You control machines." His voice was low, filled with awe. The girl's chest rose and fell, her face pale from the effort. "Not control, not fully, but I can touch their minds. I can silence them. I can twist them if I try hard enough." She looked away, ashamed. "My father knew. He called it a curse. He said it made me unnatural, weak of body, dangerous of mind." The man's jaw tightened. "He was afraid of you." She flinched. "Afraid?" "Yes," the man said firmly. "A man like that only abandons what he cannot control. He saw your power, and it frightened him." The girl's lips parted, her thoughts spiraling. All her life she had believed she was cast aside because she was useless. But what if it was the opposite? What if her father feared what she might become? The firelight flickered across her face, showing a mix of fear and something else, hope, sharp and fragile. The man leaned closer, his voice steady. "This is not weakness. This is strength. Your strength. With it, we can survive. With it, we can fight back." She looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time, she believed him. Her hands still trembled, but not from fear, from possibility. Far across the dunes, the glow of hunter lights shimmered faintly in the dark. The Baron's wrath was moving closer, his army of machines and soldiers sweeping the desert. But now, the girl no longer felt helpless. She had a weapon her father could never take from her. And for the first time, she whispered not in despair, but in defiance, "Let them come." The night was no longer silent. The ground trembled with the approach of the Baron's hunters. Their engines roared across the dunes, their armored figures glowing with red lights. The desert stars above seemed to fade against their power. The man stood tall beside the wheelchair, his rifle loaded, his eyes sharp. He knew the fight ahead was impossible. Still, his voice was steady. "Stay behind me. Whatever happens, don't give up." But the girl shook her head. Her hands glowed faintly, the strange power inside her awakening fully for the first time. "No," she said softly, yet with a fire in her tone. "This time, I fight with you." The first hunters crested the dune, their weapons raised. Red beams lit the sand. The man fired first, his shot cracking through the night. One hunter fell, but two more advanced, their footsteps heavy and sure. The girl closed her eyes. She stretched her trembling hands toward the machines. The air buzzed, sparks flickered across the hunter's armor. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then their weapons froze mid-charge. Their glowing eyes flickered, sputtering like dying stars. With a final cry, she forced her will outward. The hunter's machines twisted violently, gears grinding, metal shrieking. One dropped to its knees, sparks bursting from its chest. Another turned its weapon not on the human, but on its own ally. The man looked at her in shock. The fragile girl he had carried from the sand now burned with invisible strength. But more hunters poured over the dunes, dozens, their shadows stretching across the desert floor. The Baron himself arrived on a massive hovercraft, his cloak flowing like black fire, his golden crown gleaming under the starlight. His voice thundered across the battlefield. "Daughter, enough of this shame. Come to me or be destroyed." The girl's heart twisted. For a moment she saw the father she had begged for, or all her life, the one whose approval she had chased in vain. But then she saw the truth. His eyes were cold, not loving. He did not want her alive. He wanted her erased. The man's voice cut through her fear. "You owe him nothing." Her hands clenched. The glow around her skin grew brighter, pulsing like a living flame. She rose slightly in her chair, her back straight, her eyes fierce. "No, father," she shouted, her voice carrying across the desert. "I am not your weakness. I am your mistake." The machines around them screamed as her power surged. Dozens of drones in the sky spun wildly, crashing into one another. Hunters dropped their weapons as systems failed, their armor shutting down in sparks and smoke. The Baron's hovercraft trembled as its engines flickered under her grip. The Baron's roar of rage shook the air. "You dare defy me?" The girl's voice was steady, clear, and strong. "I dare to live." With one final surge, she forced his craft to collapse, smoke rising as it slammed into the sand. The desert shook with the impact. Silence followed. The man placed his hand on her shoulder, his voice calm but full of pride. "You are not broken. You are stronger than he ever feared." For the first time she smiled, not the smile of a crippled child begging for love, but of someone who had found her true self. The desert, once her prison, had become her battlefield. Now, it would be her beginning. Together, side by side, they rose beyond the desert, no longer hunted, no longer abandoned, but alive, free and unstoppable.